What can the digital economy do for Portugal? What can the digital economy do for youth unemployment? What can the digital economy do for those people that are going to be left behind as a result of the economic expansion in the Lisbon area? What can it do to help?
I think the digital economy is already doing a big change in the economy structure of export. Today, Portugal exports services of software and attracts a lot of investment of technological firms that are either startups that are accelerating and expanding their activities in Portugal, or the big firms like CGI from Canada, or firms like Mercedes that is installing their IT center here in Lisbon, that are bringing a lot of business but also creating jobs for the youth. And Portugal has the most qualified generation of ever. Today, our young people are more qualified than even the same generation of Germany or the UK. But this is the new thing, and this new generation is not just getting these jobs from Siemens or from the big German and American firms that are moving to Portugal. They are also boosting in terms of startups that are facing the world globally and facing the market. And in this big event, the Web Summit, they are going to put their projects through investors that come from all over the world.
Are people coming to Portugal, coming to the area from Catalonia? Are they coming from the UK? Are you getting interest from both of these two areas right now? And are you going to benefit?
In the last week, I had 3 firms from Catalonia that approached the ministry to change part of their activities from Barcelona to Lisbon. That is true. I don't know if this is a big wave or just a movement of some firms, but from the UK we had several startups that are accelerating that were in the UK and that decided to move part of their activity to Lisbon, as well as big firms like firms that we have installed in Porto that created already 350 jobs in IT, international game company, or Euronext that move also from the UK to Portugal, their services. There are several firms that are considering having Portugal as a partner. I don't think they are going to change the headquarters from London to Lisbon, but at least they are changing part of their activity because we are in the same time zone and we are still in the European Union and committed to be in the European Union. And these firms see in Portugal not just an opportunity to remain a part of their activity within the European market, but they also see that this young generation and the prices of real estate and the costs of doing the same activities in Portugal that they were doing in London are much lower, so they can do it in a more competitive way, and they are finding really good talent here. Some of the talent that were already in the UK, of Portuguese that were working in these IT firms, and they are moving some activity to Portugal, and that is a good news.
You've seen a lot of money going into the Portuguese property market and the Lisbon property market. Do you think some of those numbers are going to change? Are you worried that you're getting a bit of a boom in the Portuguese housing market right now?
The housing market is growing, and we are getting investment in the real estate area. But we didn't have a bubble before the crisis, and the prices came down during the crisis. So I think that this growth in the prices is still done from a much lower price than other capitals. But what we are seeing moving to Portugal is not just real estate. Investment grew 10% in the first semester of this year. Foreign direct investment is growing very well as well, and it's not growing just on real estate. It's growing much more on tourism. It's growing much more on IT services. It's growing much more on the industry, and this is what is making the acceleration of the Portuguese growth that is growing at 3%, and the acceleration of the exports that are growing at 12%. So this growth is a sustainable growth, and mostly a growth based on increased production and employment. Portugal was the second country in Europe with the highest growth in employment. So it's not just investment in real estate, but investment in real estate is welcome, and it's a good moment to invest in real estate because the crisis took the prices down, and the boom that the economy is having now is putting the prices up, as it should, but are still at a much lower level than any other European capital, at least than, for instance, any city in London. The prices of real estate are really very competitive still in Lisbon, Porto, and in other cities of the country.
I want to get a kind of sense, the bigger picture story right now. I think you've got 2.6% growth penciled in this year for the Portuguese economy. I think it then slows next year, I think, down to 2.2%. But you talk about those numbers being prudent. Kind of what's the upside? Do you think that the economy could grow a little bit faster than those numbers this year and next?
The economy is now growing at 3%. We are having prudent estimates for the growth, both for this year and for next year. Last year we had a provision of 1.8 growth, and we thought it was a prudent provision. Now every institutional and every international institution is predicting a much faster growth than that. For next year, we have a prediction of growth that is bigger than the one we put in the budget of last year, but it's still a realistic and prudent provision. What we are doing is working on financing, working on attracting foreign direct investment, working with the Portuguese firms to boost growth and to make sure that we are above the predictions. What we don't want is to put predictions that are too high and then fail to meet them. Because we are also on the consolidation. We had the lowest deficit in 40 years, and this year the deficit is going to be lower still. And next year we are going to have one of the biggest primary balances, positive primary balance all over Europe. So we are committed to fiscal consolidation and at the same time on boosting growth through investment, which is what is happening, and through exports, and we are having a very good export moment. But of course, for the predictions of growth in the budget, you cannot predict that we are going to continue to gain market share as we have done in the last 10 years, but we have to work to achieve that.
Minister, will the fires that have rocked the country and rocked your government have an impact on those numbers?
I think the Web Summit is going to be a great event and is going to have a big impact also in the bringing investors to Portugal. Last year, the investors that came, some of them met Portugal for the first time, and this year, I think they are going to consolidate their vision of Portugal. Some of them have already invested, but I think a lot of them are going to invest much more, and some of them are going to move their activity to Portugal as well. Thank you very much.
Minister, that wasn't the question I asked, and with the greatest respect in the world, let me ask it again. Do you think that the fires that have had such a big effect on your country will have an impact on the economic numbers?
Sorry, I thought it was about the... I don't think that I think the impact, the social impact was quite big, and the impact in the economy with the damages was important, but it's not going to have an impact on economic growth, if that is the question, because a lot of the firms were insured, the firms that were burned, and the impact is 0.01 of the GDP when you put it in terms of the damages. When you think about the impact in long term, there was an impact also on the forests that was bad, but I think we are working to improve that, and what we are working quite fast is to put the firms that were affected, and it was a small part of the economy, but to put these firms back into work and the investments coming back to them. Since a lot of the big firms that were affected, and it was, in terms of big firms, it was just a few firms. In terms of the big firms, there were insurance. This is not going to have a permanent impact on the GDP. And I think the numbers of economic growth are showing that the GDP is going to work and is going to still increase. And the numbers of the exports also show that we are still in a very good moment for the Portuguese economy.